lower fixed investment. As you know, the major source of financing for the non-financial firms is still retained earnings and depreciation. So the sources are internal basically, and other liabilities. So because of the credit stress and the decline in profitability, their capacity to invest has declined, and this has a direct impact on the bank balance sheets. I have some data about the public sector banks, which account for almost 70% of the total advances. There are 4 sectors: infrastructure, power, and in power also DISCOMs occupy the major, it's the major category which account for most of the stressed assets, roads and steel. So we have to basically link the credit stress today to the credit boom that we had, and maybe it would have led to some kind of slackness in the credit discipline. And so now we are at this juncture where we need to address the problem of the banking sector crisis. I call this crisis because the impaired asset ratio of the bank, which includes both the non-performing assets and the restructured standard assets, is almost 13% for the public sector banks, which occupies a very substantial share in the total banking space. What do we need to do now is to not only take measures which reduce the credit stress in the corporate sector so that banks also start getting repayments, but on the other hand, we have to also worry about the financial soundness of banks, as the Basel III timetable has already been announced, and there is a gradual increase in the credit capital requirement that the banks are supposed to achieve up to 2019. So looking into the problems of public sector banks, government has actually taken a number of steps to ensure financial soundness of the public sector banks. Although RBI is concerned about the financial soundness of the entire banking sector, but I am giving you the perspective from the government, because government owns these public sector banks, which account for a very major proportion of the banking space. The first, of course, step is to ensure that the tier 1 account of banks, the tier 1 capital of the banks is at a level which is in compliance with the Basel III requirements. So to that effect, government has taken a decision that, and based on the capital requirements, and which again are based on the credit growth, the assumed credit growth of the public sector banks, the government has taken a decision that government will provide, as a majority shareholder, capital support to the banks, and over the next 4 years, there is a commitment that out of 1,80,000 crore of capital required by the banks, government would be giving almost 70,000 crore over the next 4 years. Then we have also embarked upon a very major reform of governance and management reform of the public sector banks, for the board of the public sector banks, and also to align their incentives with the economic efficiency and how they could be pushed towards achieving the economic efficiency. there is another theme which is part of today's agenda, which is the mergers and amalgamations and consolidation of banking sector. I think we have to delink the two issues of banking sector crisis from the merger and amalgamations. So it's not that because we are facing a crisis, banking sector crisis, we should look at the mergers and amalgamation or consolidation actively today. As you are aware, over the years, the mergers and amalgamations, there were two kinds of mergers which were experienced. The first categories and which account for the most of the merger is the regulatory merger or mandatory merger, which is mandated by the regulator and the government, and the other is voluntary merger. We have very few instances after the nationalization of banks in 1969 where voluntary mergers have happened. Most of the mergers were regulatory mergers only or mandatory mergers. But now there is another thinking which is coming, which is in the form of resolution cooperation, and what the resolution cooperation could do to allow for orderly winding up or orderly continuation of the financial sector entities, not just banks, but all financial sector entities. So the merger and amalgamations in banking sector or consolidation has to be looked from the angle of not just the financial sector, banking sector crisis, but also from the point of view of creating institutions which are in line with the institutions being created all over world. The third topic of today's discussion is NPA management and introduction of asset reconstruction companies. And let me share with you that the model that we have adopted for introduction of asset reconstruction companies is completely different from the model which was adopted in the other Asian countries. And we have basically companies which are private in the private sector, not in public sector, and that was the right model. But because of some problems of regulations and because of the problems of financing, because these asset reconstruction companies are thinly capitalized, they could not play the role. When the legal framework for asset reconstruction company was created in 2002 by the SARFAESI Act, the idea was that let us create institutions which are specialized institutions which cater to the stress of the banks, and so that banks could hive off these assets, impaired assets from their balance sheets and give to specialized institutions which have expertise and which have the wherewithal to address the stress assets, and they could turn them around. Unfortunately, because of the capital constraints and because of the, as I was telling, the problems of the regulations, the asset reconstruction companies have not been able to play the role which was envisaged for the asset reconstruction companies when the legal framework was created. But in the recent past, a number of measures have been taken to, in fact, re-energize the asset reconstruction business. Now, the government has permitted 100% FDI in the asset reconstruction companies. Some of the regulatory changes have been introduced by RBI to incentivize them to, in fact, look at the reconstruction more proactively. But I guess we have to go a long way in addressing the problem of banking sector crisis. There are no quick solutions or short-term solutions in this. while we have to continue to create or create new policies, new institutions, so that the banking sector crisis is managed. On the other hand, we have to also look at what kind of macroeconomic interventions we could make so that the overall economic situation improves and so that it reduces the stress. I mean, we can go on and on what are the solutions to what are the solutions for NPA management. But although we know what are the solutions, but the success will depend on how serious or how sincere we are in basically improving the macroeconomic environment. I think I'll stop here and I'll allow my panelists to give their views on the subject, and then we can open the house for discussion.
Should I start? Thank you, Dr. Saxena, for this very concise and brilliant introduction to the issues of the banking sector now. Thank you also, and I'm delighted, honored to be here on this panel with my panelists of their stature. Thank you to DFS DU for this opportunity for me to come over all the way from Mumbai and participate in this discussion. And I have to compliment the young guys sitting at the back for them to have put together this complex organization together, this function together. Hats off to you guys. Really. So, I mean, to reinforce what you said, Dr. Saxena, yesterday Governor gave a speech at the CII function and the C.K. Prahlad Memorial Lecture. Urge all of you to read that speech. I mean, it reinforced many of the issues that you brought up, laid out some paths and solutions and so on. The government, together with the RBI, has been working extensively on various initiatives to try to clean up the balance sheets of banks, to try to put together new measures. Jan Dhan Yojana has been an extraordinary success that we know of, banking the unbanked, funding the unfunded, the Mudra initiative, the TREDS platform for small and medium enterprises and so on. So everything, I mean, things are happening, things are beginning to happen. So I want to lead, go beyond a little bit, beyond the here and now of banking. So unfortunately, we just heard in the last session that it doesn't make sense to talk of banks versus capital markets versus insurance anymore. Very unfortunately, it probably doesn't even make sense to talk of the financial sector anymore, finance anymore. You know, I mean, people are coming in from nowhere now and eating our lunch. So we need to, I just wanted to lead you a little bit through some of these developments. I'll keep it very, very short. The world has become an extraordinarily volatile place. Business cycles are getting shorter, more volatile. You've all heard the VUCA word, volatile, uncertain, ambiguous, complex. VUCA world, all of us are forced to operate in this situation. In the governor's speech yesterday, he spoke of 4 issues. The need for competition, the fact of competition, increased competition. We just saw the 10 licenses for the small banks. We had the payments banks before. 2 new private sector banks are already coming in. One has already started operation. The other is going to start operations. So competition and innovation, that was the first theme. Financial inclusion, exactly as you said, financial inclusion is become, you cannot take this country forward. I mean, in the growth forward, if you leave a whole bunch of people out, you will get stress in the system. So that's a given. De-stressing the system, the financial distress that we are seeing. So you've already laid out the thing. The last but not least, he said, human resources. Human resources, both from the banking perspective, from others, and also from a regulatory perspective. The regulators now have to deal with this changing environment, how to operate, how to lay out conditions for these guys to operate. So I'll just lead you through a couple of quick points on the competition and innovation part and I'm not going to stick to the financial sector. You'll get a sense of why the financial sector needs to get used to new guys coming in. Because finance has already disrupted IT, it's disrupted retail. Unfortunately now Gurgaon, Bangalore, Malad in Mumbai now feel that BKC and Fort now need to be, Nariman Point now need to be disrupted. So that's a threat that's coming our way. I'll just tell you, leave you a thought. About a year or so back, the CIA, of all, Central Intelligence Agency of the US, felt it needed to put out part of its data for analysis. You've all heard of analytics. You'll be going through this session, the 4th session on analytics, on analysis to a separate cloud computing services, cloud warehousing and computing services. A lot of known names were in the fray, IBM, Microsoft. You know who actually won? Somebody, completely unexpected. Any sense of who actually won that $600 million contract? So from the CIA, you know who won that contract? Amazon. Completely new. Nowhere before in the computing space. Amazon came in. Which I just heard this story. So now banks need to worry about how to do things differently. So people have worried about this before. Southwest Airlines, the prototype of the lean, low-cost airways. We now know of so many of these low-cost. Indigo in our country is now beginning to set benchmarks. So we now, in the financial sector, need to start looking at benchmarks. But it's looking at benchmarks. I can't look at Yes Bank or State Bank of India or State Bank looking at Axis Bank or some other bank or the most efficient bank in the world and so on. It's not going to happen. Southwest, when it was looking to start operations, was no longer looking at airlines. At that point in time in the US, United, American Airlines, and etc., sat around for 2 hours on the tarmacs. For the planes sat around and so on. So they figured that was not the way. The way to make money was to keep the planes flying up in the air, not sitting on the ground. So you know who they went in to do their benchmark? Any sense of? They were looking at roads, because roads were the natural competitors. Yeah, you needed to get the fare down to compete with road travel. You know who they started looking at their benchmarks? The racing companies. F1. All of you guys, particularly at the back, would know the pit stops, right? 3 seconds. 3 seconds the car comes in, everything changes, you're out. Yeah? That's the speed at which change is happening. So the sector, the financial sector, you need to deliver a service. You need to deliver a UX, a user experience. It's no longer just talking about consumer-centric and so on. It doesn't cut anymore. You know our new customers? It's guys sitting at the back, the young guys, even at the front. So the young guys. You know the credo of the young people today? I want the best. I want it now. And I'm not going to pay for it. That's what the banking sector is now looking to deliver. And one last point, so this is the environment in which the financial sector will operate. One last point, all of this, the Uberization of the economy, Uber, TaskRabbits, in Mumbai you now have a OK Sir. So the nature is changing. We are working in a shared economy now. Shared services, shared economy. So all of these guys now are getting into a space. Uber, you know what happened? In Mumbai, and even in Delhi, the old Kalipili taxis, we put them up, get my wallet out, 100 rupees, change, cash. So that guy is no longer, was not in the financial sector net. So now you take an app, and it's an amazing experience, the Uber app. Although a friend of mine will tell you about an experience we had in Nehru today. But other than that, Uber is an amazing experience. So you know what, you take an app, and the payment gets credited to his bank account. So what is happening, and this will increasingly happen. The people who work in our houses, the carpenters, the plumbers, the dry cleaners, etc. All of these guys will get their apps and get paid into. So what is happening because of this Uberization? You're getting financial inclusion, which we had to drive before, but technology is now driving financial inclusion. So with this, Dr. Saxena, I'll stop and allow to take forward. Thank you so much.
Very good afternoon to the esteemed panelists and the wonderful audience here. I aptly listening to Dr. Saxena as well as Dr. Chakravarti Bhattacharya in regard to the financial sector of India. Prior to that, there was a panel discussion regarding capital market, which went a little into the financial market also. And my previous assignment, I have been a fund manager for EPFO, Coal Mines Provident Fund. I was in the portfolio management, and now I am not only controlling close to 700 branches, and I am the SLBC convener for Uttarakhand in regard to the financial inclusion as well as Mudra. So what I will tell you will be directly from the experience what I had earned over a period of time. So if you see the growth of capital market, if you remember, there was a term called LPG, okay, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. With that, the disintermediation started, this mutual fund, the capital market to fund the growing needs of industries. People thought the role of banks in the coming years will come down. Let me put it in the perspective from 2002 to 2012. I have the data. The reliance on capital market for the funding by the industries has grown by only 2%, from 4.2 to 6.7. Whereas